Welcome, everyone, to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, joined, as always, by someone who we always would make sure we keep protected here at Sox Prospects, our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, we were not planning on doing a full episode today. We thought at most we would be getting on the pitch clock, but nope, full episode. Pretty busy week.
Well, yeah, we're just ignoring the pitch clock because we've always talked about how much we hate the pitch clock. So
we're grandfathered in. We're grandfathered in.
We yearn for the old days of baseball when games were 4 hours long, just like when podcasts were 3 hours long. That's what we're going for today.
You grew a gray hair during the game. Yeah, no, this is wild. In 2 days, we went from nothing happening to like a fairly major trade, the busiest Rule 5 day ever.
And
in Sox Prospects history.
Twitter fingers almost broke. I couldn't keep up with it. It was just going too fast.
Which fingers are your Twitter fingers?
Well, I was on my computer, so all of them. But
all of them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know how to type like an adult. I don't fingers. Touch type. But yeah, no, it was a very interesting day. It was, I will say, not that surprising. Given when we knew the names, we kind of hinted at it.
We called it.
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't know that I saw 7 coming.
No, I didn't see 7, but I mean, I think we identified like Jose Ramirez, Fitzgerald.
We
Bell.
identified almost everyone who got picked.
Yeah, so
the only one we didn't was Raylan Perez.
Yeah, which yeah,
we would have later maybe. But anyway, yeah, I mean, so
it's. But can we just before we get into it?
Yeah,
baseball needs to fix the winter meetings.
Yeah,
like
they're broken.
It's so boring now, and
make a dead period following the winter meetings.
I mean, I know that
something.
The problem is the Players Association would never go for it because they don't want deadlines. But it's just very frustrating when there's not really anything going on in the sports world during the week. This week, up until like the in-season tournaments later in the week, baseball could have taken it over if like you have Ohtani signing, you have Yamamoto signing, you have the Soto trade, you have all these things happening while everyone is together in Nashville, and instead nothing is going to happen because everyone is waiting for Ohtani to sign and Yamamoto to sign. And it's just like the slow drip is just not the right way to approach off seasons, as we've seen from the NBA and the NFL, who make a huge week out of their initial like free agent bursts.
But the reason those leagues can do that is with the NBA, you have a max contract. So like either you're getting the max or you're not.
Well, but it's also that with salary caps,
and with salary caps, especially with the NFL, like there's only so much money. And so there's a reason to grab it quicker.
Whereas in baseball, the agent's best interest is to just wait. And for teams, you're going to wait it out too, because you want to get the most back in return for trade. So you're going to wait to see who misses out on the free agents. And so it's just, I feel like it's getting later and later every offseason, except for the COVID year, obviously, when there literally was a deadline then. Mm-hmm. And so now it's like,
COVID year or the lockout year?
Was it the lockout year? Yeah, the lockout year. Sorry,
COVID was the spring.
Sorry, the lockout year. You're right.
Yeah.
Now we're running into a situation where, let's be honest, nothing happens over Christmas. So there's probably another week.
Although they said Ohtani might sign soon.
Yeah, so there's another week.
Sign by Monday.
There's probably another 10 days, 10 to 14 days before everyone goes on vacation and nothing happens until January. So
everyone there's goes to the same Marriott hotels in the Caribbean.
No, you go to Marriott hotels all over the world.
Right.
So there's going to be stuff has to happen at some point, and it's just the slow drip is tough. When Alex Verdugone to the Yankees is the marquee transaction of the winter meetings, and Craig Kimbrell signing is like the biggest free agent signing, that's not a good sign.
I mean, I think the marquee transaction is the Soto trade almost being done.
But it's not done.
Which says the same thing, right?
But it's not done. Like, they left without finalizing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's happening. Let's be honest.
Yeah, not great for the Red Sox. But, I mean, we'll discuss that when it actually happens.
Yes.
But it's just, I don't know. Baseball needs to do something to fix this, because the winter meetings, you have basically all the big networks are there. All the writers are there. All the podcasters are there. All the front office people are there. Like, let's get some stuff done and generate some excitement, like get people into baseball for a random week in the off season, like how the NBA and the NFL do with their free agency weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, it's been frustrating with nothing happening basically. And it's interesting too, because it seems like, Craig Breslow talked today, and he talked about how they were looking to get more done. They just weren't able to. And now it's just, seems like everyone's in a wait and see mode. Everyone is waiting for the big fish to drop. And it's just a weird system where it doesn't, there's no incentive to be the first, it seems.
Well, let's not wait for the other big fish to drop and knock some preliminaries out here at the beginning. If you want to support the show, a few ways you can do that: rate and review us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen, Amazon Podcasts, Music, Amazon Music, whatever. You can tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your latest minor league Rule 5 pick. Support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects. Pledge a certain amount per episode. Get some neat perks, including access. Probably, I think the pitch clocks may or may not live on Patreon. Some of them might, all of them might. We're not sure, but that might become a Patreon special. And finally, you can send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com because we want to talk about what you all want to hear about. Really quick, Ian, before we get into the news of the week, I want to clean up two things from the last episode talking about the rankings. First of all, we neglected to mention Briner Bonacy. Bonacy is not ranked right now. The reason we did that is I'll speak for myself. The rationale for me was given his situation where he is suspended and we just have no idea what his future is. This is not a situation where it's like an 80-day violation of the drug policy suspension and he's coming back. You know what he did. It's roughly, etc. We have no idea. I mean, he legit may never play baseball again. He legit might be back, or they might investigate, find nothing, and he comes back early in the year. Who knows? That was just way too much variance to reliably rank him. I think that's a fair way to put it, right?
Yeah, I would agree. There's just too many unknowns that it's just not there's no way to rank him accurately.
Right. Because the uncertainty is something that is a tangible thing, right? Like he's not a prospect you would be able to move right now. Right. Like no one's trading for him.
Well, he was, he was Rule 5 eligible this offseason
but he wasn't eligible for Rule 5.
But that's my point is like, he wasn't even eligible. So it's
he wasn't eligible. Yeah. But
I'm saying he would have been if
he's off the board
situation, but he was completely off the board for that. And so it's just, who knows, like, how do you measure something like that? I just don't want to have to deal with that until we know more. So
the second point is before we went off on our epic Kyle Teal, Marcelo Meyer tangent,
which Ian was right about.
No, he wasn't yet. I don't think either of us made their major league debut yet. Last I saw,
the public has spoken, and I trust our listeners.
I don't.
Well, that's why no one likes you of the listeners.
We don't hate each other, everyone. Before we got off on that tangent, we were in the middle of making 2 points, one of which we got back to, the other one which we did, and we started to talk about Yoellin Cespedes.
You want to try that again?
Yoellin Cespedes.
There you go. Third time's a charm.
Fifth time's a charm, more like. But we were going to make a point about him. We talked about how there was a tier that's basically York, Perales, Abreu, Wickelman, Gonzalez, Cespedes. And maybe you could kind of rope in Rafaela and Blaze ahead of them, but I think they're kind of a little bit above them. But the point I think we were starting to make, Ian, is that of that group, those five, Cespedes probably has the most upside. And other than maybe Blaze, of anyone in the system who hasn't already been a number one prospect, so remove the top three who are kind of off on their own little tier. I think Cespedes might have the most upside in terms of becoming a future number one in the system. Maybe it's close with Blaze, but
no, I think Cespedes probably does by now, just because Blaze is such an unknown. We just have no idea what to make of him.
Yeah, there's upside.
Yes, I mean, Cespedes, the ceiling is substantial. He's very talented. He's impressed a lot of people with his play in the DSL last year. And he's someone I know a lot of people are eagerly anticipating coming stateside to get that first look at, because the reports coming out of the DSL were glowing. So it's going to be very interesting to see him in spring training and then kind of have a better feel where to rank him. Because right now it's just a hedge because, we haven't seen him. No stateside scouts have seen him, obviously, unless they've gone to the DSL. So it's hard to have kind of an accurate picture of what type of player he is, but just hearing from people on the ground there, the people who have seen him have come away very impressed.
Yep. All right, let's get into the news then, Ian. First off, let's start with the Alex Verdugo trade dropped yesterday. The Red Sox making a major trade, which I just realized I didn't list with whom on our transactions page. I'll fix that.
Who was it with?
It was with the New York Yankees.
Wow.
Believe it or not. What a world we live in.
Yeah. Craig Breslow is just coming in and breaking all the traditions. You're not supposed to trade with the Yankees. Yeah.
Oh, Mike updated the transactions page with the Rule 5 pick, and it's a bloodbath.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
There's all different teams now. Yeah. Alex Verdugo to the New York Yankees in exchange for Richard Fitz, Greg Weissert, and Nicholas Judas. Is that how you pronounce it? Do we know?
I have no idea. He hasn't debuted, so he didn't make a roster either.
Breslow pronounced it like Judah or something. So
Judice?
Maybe. I thought he said Judah, but
Judic?
Whatever. Judic, maybe Judic.
I don't know. Let me go. I'll go on the college thing while you're talking right now.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, Verdugo to the Yankees, interesting. There's some scuttlebutt that he may be involved in the pending Juan Soto trade, which sounds like it's close to done.
No, I'm pretty sure all the Yankees people have come out and said that's not happening, and he's not in any of the rumored deals right now.
And they wanted left-handed hitting outfielders. They're like in the opposite position of the Red Sox, where they wanted to get more left-handed, which is a thing you do when you play in a ballpark that, left field is a few feet behind second base, or right field, sorry. But the return, I mean, it's 3 pitchers, Ian. I think at a top level, it makes more sense if you look at the trade as the Red Sox felt they needed to move Verdugo, and they weren't going to just hold out for a deal like that was going to blow them away. Both in part because of he's a free agent after this year, and you don't want to get left holding the bag on a free agent who may or may not. I mean, I saw someone referring to him as potentially getting the QO, which I guess he could, but maybe, I don't know. He's not a guy that I would count on getting the QO. But at any rate, I think in Fitz, Weissert, and we'll call it Judas, but it's not an overwhelming return. It's not a return that I'm throwing things either. Is that where do you fall on the return overall?
I think it's fine. I think that he was a rental. I don't know how much value he had overall. Yeah. I think the market was somewhat limited. He's got he's in last year of arbitration, or is he had a?
He's got 1 year left. Yeah, no, it's arbitration. But he's estimated to get 8.9.
But that's my point. Is a $9 million deal, $8 to $9 million that limits the market already.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that given the organizational needs, that's clearly what they went for. It's more of a quantity based package than quality, in my opinion. And kind of talking to scouts, Fitz is the headliner, and it's clear the organization really likes him, and
they think he's a starter.
Yeah. That's not something that's been echoed by. It's been a mixed bag talking to scouts about him.
Mm-hmm.
More in the relief camp because he just doesn't have a third pitch right now, and it's backed up by I think he threw 85% fastball slider last year.
Yeah, he's definitely a fastball slider guy. And the Yankees, I read the scouting report is that the Yankees wanted him to incorporate the changeup more.
He just doesn't have a third pitch, and with that, he's got effort in the delivery, injury background. I think during his draft year, he fell in the draft because of injury concerns. He was seen as a potential first rounder going into his draft year at Auburn. He's the Auburn guy, right? Yeah, he's Auburn. But it's just, it's an interesting profile though. And the thing that he does that I like, and they don't really have in the org, is he throws a ton of strikes.
Yeah.
And when you look at the high minor starting pitching prospects in the system, especially with Shane Johan now gone, which we'll get to in a little bit, the guys there, they're either not really on the same tier of prospect as him, or they don't really throw strikes. Gonzalez has not consistently thrown strikes. Dobbins, he throws strikes, but and then you look and there's, even when I'm considering Hunter Dobbins maybe the second best starting pitching prospect in the high minors, that's not great.
Well,
so it's
you're saying before Fitz.
Yeah, before Fitz.
Yeah.
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 And
true,
so
I'll put Wickelman 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by default in our rankings, Dobbins. Wickelman would be 1 and Dobbins is 2.
Yeah. No,
because Drohan's now gone. And so it's that was an area they really badly needed depth in. And if you can get Fitz in the program, and I think he took some steps forward last year, his velocity actually increased as the season went on. So I I talked to some people who saw him earlier in the season. He was like he's like low 90s, like 91, 92, 93, 94 area. And by the end of the season, he was like 92, 95, 93, 96 even in some starts. Mm-hmm. And so his velo ticked up over the course of the year. Slider got better. It seemed like he was kind of working with a bunch of different grips, trying to find a more consistent offering with it, or kind of more consistent shape with it. And if you can find a changeup with a guy like that, and maybe, you get him in the dev program, especially now that it's going to be which we'll probably talk about, it's pretty much completely new pitching dev at the high minor level.
Maybe that's something we can throw in right here, actually.
So I think that it's an interesting arm to get in because of his fastball shape. His fastball shape is good, and he throws a ton of strikes. And I think, if you can build off that, that's a nice baseline to have. And the question is, can you get him into the dev program and kind of build on that? And the other thing I will note is talking to some teams that he's actually someone that scouts, as I said, might not have been as high on, but I guess analysts and the models love him. So it's something where there's kind of a divide there. The stats versus scouting community is a little split on him.
Clegg loves him.
Yeah,
Clegg,
so it'll
Clegg has been high on him for a while.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens, how he looks when he gets in the org, because I talked to some people who freely admitted they're like, I don't like him having seen him, but our guys do. So it'll be interesting to see. And he's, given the lack of depth in the high minors, as we were talking about earlier, he's probably going to go inside the top 20 in the rankings already, which maybe we want to do a big segment talking about all of them. Yeah.
I would just we can just talk about them as they come up. I
think
I think he's 11, 12. Yeah.
I would take him over Mydroth. I don't think that's that controversial.
Yeah. So it's weird because it's like, how do you like Mydroth versus Castro? Like, I think I'd put him with either before or behind.
Well, because I just look at, because I think he's a 45 right now, because I think worst case he's a reliever.
Yeah.
And with the fastball slider,
he's a major reliever. I think he's clearly a major league pitcher.
So there's a pretty high floor there. And if he can be a starter, then that's obviously, if he can develop that third pitch, he can kind of refine the breaking ball, then he has a chance to kind of rise pretty quickly. So I think probably like 11, 12 range would be where I think he's going to slot in initially.
Yeah. My first thought when they acquired him is like, he clearly replaces Drohan in the top 3 pitching prospects. And I was just like, okay, does he fit in that Paralis Wickelman tier? And I think he's maybe a tick below it.
I look at him versus Drohan. Yeah, I would have
him versus Drohan wasn't close to me.
Well, no, but that's what I was going to say is just if you look at it, that the biggest difference is he's got the fastball, which Drohan doesn't. Drohan's like a 40, 45 fastball, whereas Fitz is a good analytics or good like metric fastball, and it plays well in game. He's can get whiffs with it. He's got good carry up in the zone, and he throws a ton of strikes. So those are some really good. As I said, it's a good baseline to build off with that fastball.
Yeah. All right. So then next is Greg Weissert, a guy who has gotten major league experience in each of the last 2 seasons, relief only, but strikes me as good up and down depth on the 40-man roster from the right side. Another big slider guy, featured on Pitching Ninja a lot because he's
a sweepy. He's got the sweepy slider or sweeper,
big sweeper that like he called it in one tweet a 2-time zone slider.
Well, he's got a really funky delivery too. It's that low, like slingy arm slot where he comes across his body, which is really tough for right-handed hitters, obviously. But stuff's, it's fine. It's 92, 96 fastball, sinker. He throws both of them about the same amount of time. He's mostly fastball, sinker, sweeper. Sweeper is like 79 to 82 long, got that long depth. And then he mixes in a cutter and a changeup also, but he only threw those about like 5% of the time last year. So not that often. So he's mainly a 3-pitch guy, or, depending on how you want to deal with the fastballs, multiple variations of a fastball. But as you said, he's a good depth arm. I like he's an optionable reliever. And, especially given they lost, Ryan Fernandez in Rule 5, and they have obviously cleaned up the back end of the 40 with a few of those kind of depth relief arms. It's nice to have someone who you can probably project to start in Worcester, but be ready as that kind of that first guy up who has options.
Yeah.
Because right now they just didn't, if you look at the potential pitchers down there, like other than Nick Robertson, depends. Maybe Zach Kelly makes the opening day roster. I think he probably does, but it's Mata not having options. You potentially only had 2. If Mata's not on the opening day roster and has to get DFA'd, and Kelly or even Robertson makes it instead of him, you're only going to have 2 optionable righties down there in the bullpen. So you need some depth there.
It seems clear that Breslow has been intent on building the high minors pitching depth with the moves he's made. It seems pretty clear that that was an area they were targeting between the acquisition of Isaiah Campbell, the Slayton deal that happened today in Rule 5.
Well, I can't say I disagree with it, because you look at how many, like, I understand, and I've obviously been an advocate of kind of like churning through that last couple of spots in the 40-man, but last year it was not great at the back end of the 40.
No.
They definitely could have used more. There were too many guys that were easily DFAable, in my opinion. And so
that's why they were churning through waivers.
Exactly. But going out and getting a few more guys now that you have conviction about, I like that approach, and having some guys that you have more confidence in, earlier in the season, so you can get a look at them in camp and get them again back in the dev program. I like that idea. So between Campbell, Weissert, Slayton, who we'll talk about in a little bit, I like that approach, and I think we're seeing some consistencies there with either they're really funky or they throw hard. The Craig Breslow model.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between, I think under Bloom they were content with sitting back and seeing who fell into their laps on waivers. And sometimes you're going to get Brandon Bernardino, right? Like you can get good finds that way. But it seems that there is a much more assertive.
Well, I think it's targeting your players instead of reacting.
It's going out there and saying like, all right, the Yankees want Verdugo. We like this guy Weissert. Let's include him in the deal.
Yeah, or like
to be part of that depth.
We like Isaiah Campbell. Here's Luis Urias, who we're probably going to non-tender anyway. Things like that. Or we'll get to the Justin Slayton one. Going out and getting a guy in Rule 5 who you clearly thought was going to get selected ahead of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third player in the deal is Nicholas. Did you find the?
I didn't know. It's not on the ULM.
Judasy, whatever. Drafted this year out of Louisiana Monroe, I believe.
Yep. Eighth
round. Yep. By the Yankees. 6'8".
Yeah, he's massive.
Huge dude.
Like, he didn't pitch this year either, which was
interesting. Well, he didn't pitch after being drafted. He pitched
right. That's what I mean. So,
but
there's no pro scout looks.
Almost exclusively relief only in college.
Yeah.
He had like 3 starts or something, I think.
Yeah, he started his last 3 outings of the year were starts.
Yeah, and the Yankees at least reported, according to the report I saw, thought that he might be a candidate to move into the rotation. It would not surprise me if the Red Sox did that with him, moved him into the rotation. It would not surprise me to see him start the year and extended.
No, I mean, I don't have an issue with trying it out.
Put him in the program and see where it goes. But
yeah, I mean,
what do you got on him?
If you have conviction that you think he can start, try it out. Fastball, slider, change up. I think he throws a curveball too, but it's mostly fastball, slider. He throws hard. It's mixed reports.
100,
like, yeah, maybe. I saw that one place, but I wasn't able to independently confirm that. I think I heard mostly like low to mid 90s, like 93, 94 area, like up to 95, 96. But he's got a good slider, and gets a lot of whiffs with it. I think Baseball America talked about how he had the best secondary pitch of any Yankee draftee from last year.
Right.
Because his slider had a 35% swing and miss rate. So, which is very good, obviously. So that's pretty interesting. And if you watch the video of him, that I think one of the draft guys had that Chris Clegg retweeted, he is just an imposing presence on the mound. And yeah, there's a lot to like there. And that one just screams a Craig Breslow, pitching dev pick. Like, this guy's a ball of clay. He's 6'8". He throws hard. He's got a good breaking ball. Let's get him in the system and see what we can make out of him, because there's a lot of interesting parts here. And I can't say I disagree with just being like, hey, we need a third piece in the deal. Let's take the tall pitcher who throws hard with a good breaking ball and see if we can make him a starter. In worst case, he's a reliever. So yeah, that's I really like him as a third piece. I think that's a really nice get by the Red Sox. Even, we don't know how it's going to turn out, obviously, and no one's seen him in pro ball, but I just think that's the type of player I think there's upside there. And that's something I would, be going after as a third piece in a deal.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I forget the point I was going to make. But anyway, to get to another point that I know we were going to get to, we mentioned the pitching development team and status, not status, team and apparatus and department that they have. The Red Sox on Monday hired Justin Willard away from the Minnesota Twins.
Correct.
To be there. I guess he's the director of pitching. He's going to oversee the entire organization and work closely with Andrew Bailey,
who we talked about last episode was hired as the pitching coach.
Yep. Seems like it's gonna, they're gonna work together on pitching development and training and everything at all levels of the system, including the major leagues. Meanwhile, we got some questions about what Sean Haviland's role is going to be going forward if they hired a director of pitching. And you've got it. What is his new title, Ian? You've got it right there.
Special assistant in player development with while he'll remain involved with the pitching development, but he'll also be working with other aspects of baseball operations. And this is per Alex Spear, who had that note. So it seems like they're going to turn the keys over to Willard. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of shift there is, because Willard, if listening to some like interviews he's done, it's the same Breslow and the same as Bailey. It's maximizing everything, throwing hard, it's the same priorities. So it seems like they're going for continuity there, and it's going to be interesting having kind of some new voices in the room in that side of the game and see what happens with the pitching development, because it's clear the guy Breslow, when he came in, thought there was a change was needed there. And you look, at AAA, they're having a new pitching coach. They hired a new bullpen coach, Noah Junis, who is, I think, Jake Junis's brother, who has pitched in the majors. And he also, though, he's worked with some of the Giants pitchers. So I think there's a connection.
We talked about him in the last episode.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah. I remember because I'm doing QC on it, and like, that's literally what I listened to. Right.
But yeah, so, they're bringing in, they're replacing basically both the pitching related coaches in AAA, new director of pitching, new major league pitching coach. So clearly that was an area Breslow wants to kind of make his own. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward with it.
I also want to see what they do with things like draft picks and international money, because they're just really the investment in pitching has not really been there with like early draft picks and things like that. So
you look at the Cubs. The Cubs are a team that have been very aggressive targeting pitching early in drafts. Cade Horton, guys like that. They've taken a lot of pitchers early and used a lot of their resources towards it. So that's definitely something that will be interesting. Something I'm sure we'll be talking about come next June, July, whenever the draft is.
All right, well, let's move on to today in the Rule 5 draft. We previewed it last episode, and I think we called it, Ian. We said that they were likely to get at least one guy taken in the major league phase, and they were definitely going to get at least one, if not a few guys taken in the minor league phase. I would not have guessed that they would take anyone, which they essentially did. Taking someone in the minor league draft from the New York Yankees is an annual tradition. And for the 6th year in a row, the Red Sox have done so, which I love.
Yeah, no, that's mandatory. That was, I wonder if that was in Breslow's contract.
Like, you must take someone from the Yankees in the minor league Rule 5 draft. I don't think we saw losing 7 guys in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft. If you told me they lost 2, so it's kind of funny. So I had let me preface what I'm about to say with, I am an attorney. I was in court while the Rule 5 draft was happening. Because I just tweeted the second part earlier and realized that without that context, that is a very different statement, that I was in court. But I was in court, came out, and you and James were tweeting up a storm, or not tweeting, you were talking up a storm in the Slack. This was kind of, not necessarily what we expected, but I don't know that I'm surprised. And I came out and immediately guessed who they lost in the major league phase and 6 of the 7 guys they lost in the minor league phase. So it's like, this was kind of predictable.
Yeah.
With what we knew.
It's not that surprising. It is, but it isn't, because just the sheer volume, I think, is surprising. If you look, they lost 9 players between the 2 phases. The Yankees lost 7. The next highest was 5. So, and if you just look at the minor league phase, I think they were 11% of the players selected were from the Red Sox. So
it's wild.
That's a lot.
It's like, look, just to throw some context on it, the Red Sox lost in total 9 guys, 7 in the minor league phase. The next highest total is the Yankees lost 7, 3 in the major league phase, 4 in the minor league phase. And then both Colorado and the Mets lost 5 in the minor league phase. Cleveland, the Cubs, the Phillies, and the Pirates lost 4. And then you get a bunch of teams with 3. 21 teams lost at least one player in either the major or minor league phases. Still 9 is a lot. And the Red Sox, I should explain this again because it's confusing to a lot of people. And we definitely got at least one email about it. The minor league Rule 5 draft. People get the way the major league phase works, right? Like you have a 40-man roster. If a guy is eligible for the Rule 5 draft and not on the major league 40-man roster, which is also called the major league reserve list, a team can pick a guy. He has to stay in the major leagues all year. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's essentially it. I think people get that at this point. The minor league phase, there is a AAA reserve list. It has 38 spots. If a Rule 5 eligible player, same eligibility rules as the major league phase, is not on either the major league 40-man roster or the AAA reserve list, which is 38 players, they are eligible for selection in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft. A player selected in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft is gone. He's not coming back. All a team selecting that player needs to do is keep him on the AAA, or I guess just even have room on the AAA reserve list, because you can remove guys from it later if they're not assigned to AAA. But they just have to be on the AAA reserve list. They don't have to be in AAA.
Nope.
They can be at any level of the minors. The Red Sox have taken guys in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft and assigned them to Lowell. Like there's no requirement for where you send the guy. So the 7 guys that got selected, they gone. They are not getting returned. It's like Cameron Cannon last year. Like they're gone.
Yeah.
So I guess let's go through the players, Ian. In the major league phase, the Red Sox lost Shane Drohan to the White Sox and Ryan Fernandez with the 4th pick, and Ryan Fernandez to the Cardinals with the 6th pick, right?
Yeah.
And that's the 4th pick and 6th pick, not like the 4th and 6th spot, is it? Yeah. Yeah.
No, they were no one had passed into that.
No one had passed. So, yeah. So, not surprised about either, particularly Drohan. We've gone through the whole thing and previewed it.
They're 2 of the Rule 5 eligible players in our rankings. They were, I think,
they were the 2 highest ranked.
No. Bastardo, I think, might be above.
Oh, and Castro. So yeah.
No, I'm just saying of people who realistically could have gone, because Castro wasn't going to go.
Yeah.
But Bastardo, I think, is the only one. But like they're all in this, as we kind of talked about,
sure,
that they're in that same range. So seeing Fernandez and seeing I would have, if you had to ask me which 2 were most likely, it would probably be that they would have definitely been up there.
Yep.
I think we've talked extensively about them, so it's not really a surprise to see either of them go. And I think that unlike last year, I think that both have a pretty good chance of sticking because they got drafted by teams with the White Sox are clearly rebuilding, so they have no incentive to return Drohan. And the Cardinals, we don't know. They've obviously gone out and been the most active team in free agency so far.
Yeah,
but
Fernandez
as a bullpen guy,
I
think you can make that fit. Yeah, and his stuff is good enough that if he shows any sort of potential, they're just going to keep him.
The only way he goes back, the only way he gets returned is if like the stuff is not there in camp or something, or if the stuff regresses, or if they look at his medicals and they're like, wait, nope, never mind, or something. Like, I don't know. That's the only way I could see him coming back. I think they're both gone.
Yeah.
The Red Sox did not pick anyone, but what they did do is they made a trade with the New York Mets for the player they selected with what was the 7th pick, because the team at 7 passed. And Justin Slayton, right-handed pitcher from the Texas Rangers, who was a guy that there was a lot of buzz about.
Yeah, Baseball America was all over that. Jeff Pontus and JJ Cooper, who do a great job covering the Rule 5 draft there.
Yep.
Had him as like the guy generating the most buzz or something.
Mm-hmm. And what they did is they traded left-handed pitcher Ryan Ammons, who joins an esteemed group of players who signed with the Red Sox and never actually played for them. He was drafted in the 10th round this year, I think, and was injured. Never actually played.
He was 10th round selection out of Clemson, but
Clemson. Yep.
He opened this, but he got hurt at Clemson. Yep. And obviously
they knew he was going on the IL. Yep.
Yeah. So he did not pitch this year.
Yeah. Slayton, interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because the Baseball America, JJ and Jeff did an article analyzing each of the picks and putting their chances to stick, right? And they give Drohan a good chances to stick, Fernandez moderate, which I think a lot has to do with the fact that he's a pure reliever and the fact that he's got the injury history. But Slayton's the only guy they gave a very good to. So tell me a little bit about Slayton, Ian.
Slayton's an interesting one because he was not basically didn't throw strikes up until last year.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, he really figured it out.
Cut his walk rate by more than half.
Yeah, he I'm just bringing it up now.
His walk rate dropped from 19.5% in 2022 to 8.5% in 2023.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. So
nice drop.
So he's 26 already. But yeah, as you said, in 2022, his walk rate was 8, almost 9 per 9 innings. Not good. But percentage, as you said, it was 19. Like 19.8. Cut it last year. Strikeout rate went up. In AA, strikeout rate was 37.4%. In AAA, it was 31.3%. So he's missing a ton of bats.
Like to see that.
He doesn't give up a lot of hits. In AAA, average against him was 107. And granted, it was a small sample. It was 8
starter.
Innings. No, he
was in the bullpen.
He's a pure reliever.
Pure reliever since being drafted.
Yes.
No.
He started in the low minors. He started in 2019 and 2021, but since he made one start last year, which I'm guessing was an opener appearance. But yeah, he's a reliever. He's a pure reliever. There's a lot of effort in the delivery, but he's got a big fastball and he's got a couple of interesting secondary pitches.
Oh, a sweeping slider, you say?
Yeah, shocker. I'm sure you didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, actually he's mostly like fastball, cutter, slider. And fastball is up to 98, 95, 97, 95, 97 mostly, touch 98, cutter 88 to 91 miles an hour, and then a mid-80s slider, big sweeper slider. That's a nice complement with the cutter. So he's a 3-pitch. He'll throw a curveball on occasion too, but mostly 3-pitch guy. Gets a bunch of swing and misses on his slider. Fastball can get missed bats too. It's got ride. It's got really good movement. And his stuff plus, like the Baseball America model, also has him really highly on that as one of the he's the 3rd overall pitcher in stuff plus of the Rule 5 eligible guys. Mm-hmm. So the stuff is there. He throws hard. It's a power arm, and he's close to big league ready. I mean, he made it up to AAA last year. So if he can show that the strike throwing ability he showed last year is legit, then that's a really interesting pickup. You're talking about a guy potentially with 2+ pitches. So definitely an interesting, exciting arm to add to the system, and someone who I think is comfortably inside the top 30, even as a pure reliever. I'm going to have to dig into more to talk to more scouts about him, but seems to compare pretty favorably to someone like Luis Guerrero, who we currently have as one of the higher ranked relievers in the system. So
yeah, nice.
It's nice to go out and get a guy like that for, Amons. We don't know really what he is yet because we've never seen him, but they clearly had conviction about him. They went out and traded up more or less to get him. And he's someone who seems squarely in the mix for the bullpen for next year if he pitches well in spring training.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to because he's a Rule 5 pick, even though they traded for him. The Rule 5 rules do apply.
I got several questions about that. So
the Rule 5 rules apply to him. He is a Rule 5 pick. He's either going to make the Major League Club or get sent back to the Rangers, or I guess put on waivers. And if he clears, then sent back to the Rangers.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's when you see that, and I've talked about the current projected Major League pitching staff, with regard to like whether Brian Mata will make it, right? Like the number of guys they have. You listen to things that like Cora talking about who they're going to stretch out and things like that. Like, might we see guys like who are getting stretched out sent down to AAA?
To keep the innings
stretched
up.
out and keep their innings up, as opposed to, because as much as we talked about long relievers in the Major League bullpen last year, like they really did not consistently for the entire year have a guy, and I'm not counting Nick Pivetta when he was starting with an opener, right? Like that's not what I'm talking about. But when guys like Winkowski or even Whitlock were the quote unquote reliever who can give you long innings, those guys, they're just, and this has happened every time they've had a long reliever going far back as I can remember. you don't need 3 innings out of a relief pitcher consistently enough for that role to just be, this guy comes in and every time gives us 3.
Yeah.
Well, because either you need it twice in 3 days or something, or you like, because what you do is you use the guy for that and then you don't have him for 2 or 3 days. Well, that puts more stress on other guys.
The other issue with that was those guys were basically your setup guys last year because of injuries and other
things.
Right.
So. With Winkowski and then Whitlock, maybe not quite so much.
But by the end of the season, he was in that role.
I guess that's true.
Like he was pitching leverage innings.
So I'm just wondering, do some of those guys get optioned to AAA or something? Like,
yeah, I mean, Winkowski's the obvious one. He has options because you look at, I don't
Whitlock
think Hal
should too.
Whitlock probably has options. Yeah, actually, you're right.
Yeah, I mean,
he's used none, so he has options.
It's weird. It would be weird to do that with him because of what the money he's making.
Hauk has options too. I don't think he would ever get options.
No, Hauk's staying up. How can Whitlock stay up? Winkowski would be interesting.
Campbell's another one though. Campbell has options. Like,
yeah, I mean, Campbell, I don't think there's any chance he makes the roster at this point unless there's injuries. Unless they really do some crazy stuff, sending guys like Winkowski and Whitlock down.
Yeah, but so it's going to be interesting because I think there is room for someone like Slayton on that roster as kind of a power arm. So he's and I just like that he again would building up that staple of high minors power arms. Him, Weiser. Well, Weiser's not really a power arm, but him, Robertson, Zach Kelly, like Brian Mata. Even right now, you've got 4 guys right there throw mid to high 90s, which as we talked about, that seems to be what the approach or the kind of the archetype of pitcher that the new dev staff is going after, because there's just a bigger margin for error when you throw harder. It's sometimes it's pretty simple. Like it can just boil it down to that. So I'm interested to see kind of how they continue to reshape the bullpen, because I didn't see it as an obvious need, but I don't hate like going out and get it and reinforcing it and making it a really big strength. And if Slayton and Campbell and a couple of these guys hit, then they've got a really nice group of arms there.
And for those who might be wondering why the Red Sox, so I think we're picking 14, Ian. 12. They're picking 12. Yeah. Why they essentially trade up. Right, to 8. What they did is, it's not like the Mets picked Slayton and they were like, oh, hey, here's Ryan Ammons, or Ammons.
Yeah, that was known.
It's they saw, they might have seen how the draft was unfolding and called the Mets before their pick and were like, yo, are you going to pick someone? But the draft goes so quick, actually.
Yeah, no,
so it would have had to have been ahead of time.
It either was known ahead of time, or literally the Mets took him and they were like, "Hey, we like him. Would you take this for him?" But I would assume it's probably the former.
I assume it's the former. I'd be like, the Red Sox were probably like, the Red Sox probably thought someone between 9 and 11, was going to take Slayton if he was there, and they said to the Mets, "Take Slayton, and if Slayton is still there, take him. We will give you Ammons."
Well, because the thing is, these teams know when everyone's going.
Yeah,
at the beginning,
they have a feeling at least.
Yeah. So they probably knew, maybe they knew the first 6 were going to be this, and then it's the Angels pass. Okay, grab them, and then we're good. So that was clearly a targeted transactions or targeted player. And so we talked about earlier, I like the conviction of going out and getting your guys.
Yep. All right, minor league rule 5, Ian. Let's kind of go lightning round really quick here, because there's a lot to get through. And I guess let's start with the guy the Red Sox picked, Mickey Gasper, catcher from the New York Yankees. I literally know nothing about him except that he apparently is a AAA catcher, which it seems like is this the guy that's there off the 40-man third catcher? Or
so I actually saw him last year. Funnily enough, I went back to my notes, and
that makes sense.
Because he was in AA, he was in Somerset, and he's actually a Bryant University grad.
Oh, there you go.
He's a local guy from Merrimack, New Hampshire. I think that's near you, right?
No, it's a little further up. We played some games there sometimes.
Okay. Well, so he's a New Hampshire resident, just turned 28 years old, left-handed hitting catcher, undersized, listed at 5'9", 205, so catcher's build. And in AA last year was pretty good, 269, 388, 423.
They would have seen a lot of them in the Yankee system, obviously.
Yeah, not a lot of power, 6 home runs, but doesn't strike out really. Only had 27 strikeouts and 188 PAs there. So, good approach, good bat to ball skills. Went up to AAA and struggled a little bit, but it was a small sample. I think he only got 78 plate appearances in AAA. So not a lot. And I think just looking at the projected rosters for next year, he fits a hole. Like they didn't have a third catcher in Worcester really. Because Matt Donlin was who was kind of the name right now, but he hasn't played. He doesn't really play. He's
the Phantom IL. Well, not Phantom IL now. It's the dev list, but he's the dev list catcher.
But if you look, they just don't have a lot of.
It's Scott. Depth. It's Marrero if they're comfortable moving him up to AAA because he can certainly handle a pitching staff. The thing is, it's just he's completely empty bat.
Yeah.
And it's Gasper.
Yeah. And if you even look at AA, the only two catchers we have are Teal and Arrow. Like that's just not a very deep position in the system right now.
They could definitely still go get someone else. Absolutely.
I honestly think they will because I could see them wanting Marrero to start in AA as kind of the backup catcher or him being kind of,
him and Arrow. They like him.
Yeah. Both. Yeah. So, I think it's just, it's good. That's what the minor league Rule 5 draft is for, identifying those areas in your organization where you're light and going out and getting someone that, your scouts like, and clearly like Gasper, he's a switch hitter. He's got some feel for contact. Like, let's bring him in and see if he can fill that hole at catcher.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting pick. It's a freebie. Why not? Sure. Bring him in. And it keeps the tradition alive, a tradition unlike any other. Now let's just kind of bop our way really quick through the guys. The Red Sox.
Do you want to say what that tradition is? It's 6 straight years they've taken a
6 years
in the minor league Rule 5 phase.
Mentioned it earlier, but worth repeating. I love. Actually, let's do. People are going to wonder. Well, who are the others? Starting in 2018, the Red Sox selected.
Wait, do you want me to guess? I think I can.
I think I can do it, but try it.
No, I was going to go the other way.
One.
Well, no, I was going to go the other way.
Yeah, and yes, go ahead.
Okay, so last year was obviously Ryan Miller, who we will talk about in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
2021.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you're gonna. There's one other guy I think you'll get. I think you'll have trouble remembering the other ones, and one or two of them will be like, "Oh yeah, that guy."
2021. So that would have been.
In 2021, this guy was their second minor league Rule 5 pick.
Yeah, I know. I know they had two. Who was it?
Just name any guys you can think of. Don't even think about the order because we're going to spend way too long on this if we do it that way.
The first one was the lefty.
Yep, Austin Lambright from Kansas City.
It's Kevin Keller. Leader. No, it's not Kevin Keller. It's a Keller though.
Brian Keller.
Yes, thank you. I knew it was a Keller.
AAA swingman. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. 2020.
Is 2020 the one you think I can get pretty quickly?
Yep.
2020.
Good riddance.
Oh, Caleb Ward. Yeah. Okay.
Can we leave that in?
Yeah, sure. 2019 is actually the one I know because I like this player. It's Raynel Espinal.
Yes.
And I think he pitched in the big leagues, right?
He did. And the funny thing is the other minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft they picked. Oh, so actually, let's double back. 2020, or it was their second minor league phase pick. Their first one was
Tyreek Reed from the Rangers.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big first baseman. 2019 Rule 5 draft, they picked Raynel Espinal in the first round of it. And they picked Jose Espada in the second round, who made his major league debut this year.
Oh, wow. He did make his major league debut.
Yeah.
I knew Espinal because I remember he was someone I liked.
Yep. Yeah. He was another guy that got up to AAA and was like pretty good there.
And then he made the big leagues with the Red Sox, and then also with I think the Reds.
He did get back up last year. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yep. 2018 is the last one. You're not going to get it. Trust me. You're just not.
I have no idea.
It's Anielo Gomez from the Yankees that year. He was a reliever. I don't even know if he pitched. Honestly, if he did, he didn't pitch a lot. He was gone the next year, I think.
No, they picked. It was two guys. Schwab was Yankees also.
Well, no, Schwab was from Detroit, but he had been released by the Yankees mid-year and signed with Detroit.
Got it.
That was the one where they started it by taking essentially two Yankees.
Yeah.
They've taken someone in the minor. They've taken
Anielo Gomez. That was not a name I remembered.
Yeah. They've taken at least two players in the minor league phase since it became the minor league phase in 2016. And then in 2015, when it was still the AAA phase, they took two guys they took one guy that year.
And then this year they didn't, though.
This year they only took the one. That's true. That's a good point. Yep. All right, the guys they lost. Let's do lightning round on this because don't want to spend too long on it. I'm not going to give the number of the pick because teams passed. Like the A's passed with the first pick, which is wild.
I would just say the round probably makes more sense.
Okay. First round, Chicago White Sox select Jose Ramirez, right-handed pitcher. He started in Salem this year. Any thoughts on him? He was one of the ones I was surprised they didn't protect.
Yeah, I would say he was definitely up there. He's someone scouts as soon as the list came out.
They say he gone.
That was an interesting one to them. But
potential reliever. He's not a starter.
He's not a starter. He
was going to move to the bullpen this year, I bet.
No, he's definitely not a starter, but he's got a bowling ball sinker. Gets a ton of ground balls, a lot of weak contact on the ground, flash a good breaking ball. Control needs work, but certain teams like that guys who get with that heavy sinker, and he's one of them. So that was I don't know what your cat's doing.
My cat is freaking out in the background, like rolling around in her country.
But he was an interesting guy. I would have liked to see what he could do in the relief because I've seen him up to like 96 before. He's mostly like 91, 93 last year. But yeah, I mean, he's
also old for the level. Like he's not
22,
young. He's
23.
Like, he's been Rule 5 eligible for like a couple of years now.
But
which is kind of wild.
That's why I would move him to the pen and see what you got. Yeah. But
actually, they signed him old was his thing.
Yeah, he signed when he was like 18 or 19, I think.
Oh no, is he the one that spent 3 years in the DSL?
Maybe.
I think he spent 3 years in the DSL, but then he suddenly like found some velo.
He was. Yeah, he did spend 3 seasons in the DSL. He signed normal too.
Yeah, did he sign? Okay, so he signed normal. He just spent a ton of time at the complex.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a pretty good season last year. 90 innings, 380 RA. Yeah. So that's, I mean, and this is the thing with the minor league phase is, these guys aren't unlikely to be impact players, but it's just losing depth. And I was going through the bullpens potentially, and with him and Brock Bell, who someone to talk about later, looking at the Greenville right-handed relievers, like they would probably be my third and fourth favorite of what we have projected for next year. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like losing that depth is the part that hurts, I think, with these guys going.
Yep.
So
next guy who was picked, the Cardinals selected John Frank Salazar, mostly an infielder. I did get a little look behind the plate last year. I guess he's still catching this offseason in
is he?
Wherever he's not playing in a league, but he was like working out. I think he's Venezuelan and was working out with his Venezuelan league team.
He is Venezuelan. He's not a good catcher though.
He had his gear on in photos that they posted on their Instagram. More like, I saw him play. He's like, okay. None of these guys, by the way, are ranked in our top 60, which
talking to scouts, he's not a very good catcher.
He's not a good catcher. But he's an okay infielder. He's a
versatile infielder who can hit.
Good makeup.
He got a decent bonus. I think he was $400K bonus a few years in 2019. Mm-hmm. This year he crushed the FCL 374, 408, 593, but he had no business being there. He was far too good for the level.
It was weird that he was there.
Well, it was because he was learning catcher.
They were trying to make the catcher thing happen, but then it was weird because the FCL started and he barely caught. So it's like, what is he still doing there? And I think it was just a depth thing.
So then he got up to Salem, 228, 307, 374, but walks a lot or walks a decent amount, doesn't really strike out, makes a ton of contact. Has a little bit of power, not really
good makeup. Apparently his teammates like him.
Needs to grow into his power, but it's another solid depth piece. Someone who I know like scouts liked, and obviously clearly the Cardinals were one of those teams because they took him 6th overall.
I will say actually, because I just made the makeup comment, I think is he the one that I said when the second weekend that I saw Salem this year, that was just really like boisterous and demonstrative out on the field. Like he went deep and was like going crazy all the way around. His nickname was El
Capitan though. So.
Yes. Yeah. His teammates love him, but he was just being very, it's interesting, the decision not to protect him, knowing all that. All right. The next guy that the Red Sox lost, a few picks go by and they lose a little bit of Alexis Hernandez in the outfield to the Toronto Blue Jays in the first round. I kind of liked Hernandez a little bit, and you identified him last spring training as a guy you liked a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a really good swing. He's got some ability at the plate, good contact skills again. As I said,
statistical season.
Yeah, he hits the ball hard. He can hit fastballs. Good arm because he's a converted pitcher, good athlete. He runs okay. There's a lot of stuff to like there. He's just really just not stayed that healthy. Mm-hmm. He last year only played in 26 games. This year he only played in 46 games. So,
got it. Yeah. Last year being 22. Yeah.
Correct. So, you're looking at a guy who's played, 70 games.
Did he only play in 46 this year?
Yeah.
Between
4
two
games
levels?
in the FCL and 42 in Salem.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he didn't go up to Salem until the FCL had started, but fair. But still, that's interesting. I mean, he still should have games. Yeah.
So he's just pretty inexperienced, but I thought the swing would be, maybe if you like the swing, you protect him, but clearly not. So he's on his way to Toronto. But that's a nice piece of scouting for them, being able to, identify him off of a pretty small sample this year.
Yep. The one guy I didn't get in my first cut at guessing the 7 guys who got picked, but who I immediately, you did not have faith in me, and I got him with my next guess, was Raylan Perez, right-handed relief only, right?
Yeah, pure reliever.
Pure reliever. I think he was just in the FCL in Salem this year.
Nope, just Salem. Just Salem. Yeah.
Okay. Numbers don't jump off the page or anything, I don't think. That was a little bit surprising.
69 strikeouts and 56 innings is nice, but he's a sinking fastball guy too. Decent slider, with an okay spin rate. So he's a 2-pitch guy, potential relief type. But yeah I mean, he was one I was kind of surprised was taken. He wasn't really on my radar, but it's fine. Yeah.
The reason I guessed him is he just played in like the U23 World Cup qualifier for the Dominican, along with
if he was
Albertson,
good there.
Albertson, Asajan, and it was one more hitter. I can't think of it off the top of my head. They had 3 guys down there. I think it's another outfielder if you can think of them. But anyway, no, Claudio Simone. Claudio Simone. He played third base.
But I think that
maybe someone saw him down there and was like,
I mean, with guys down here, it's just that's what it is. It's you have your scouts turn in the guys they like, and we say, hey, we need these positions, or we really like this guy. I have conviction on him, and you go out and get him. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with him in Houston.
Next guy selected is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Selected Ryan Miller, the aforementioned player the Red Sox selected in the minor league Rule 5 draft last year from the Yankees. He pitched in Double-A all year, I believe.
Correct.
Right-handed, relief only. You kind of liked him. You were kind of pushing for put him. He was in like the 70 range for you, I think. He might have peaked into your top 60 for a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think he's got pretty good stuff. Mid-90s fastball up to like 95, 96. Couple of decent secondary pitches, and he had a good statistical season. Doesn't walk guys, 67 strikeouts and 60 innings. Limits hard contact. Sometimes, other times he gets, if he misses location, it's very hittable.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent, but I think the stuff is intriguing enough that he could, worst case, you got a solid depth arm.
Yep. Next guy, it's a while before you see another Red Sox picked. He's the only guy picked in the second round. In the third round, the first pick made in the third round was Ryan Fitzgerald to the Kansas City Royals. We called that one. I'm kind of surprised it took till the third round, honestly.
Yeah.
As a Major League ready is not the term I want to use, but a guy
for him, it's a great move.
He's at least 4A, right? Like
he's a 4A player, but with them, he's got a chance to be in the big leagues. I mean,
he's probably going to be a Major League camp.
Yeah. Oh no, will he definitely be a Major League camp? But he's got a chance to. I would not be surprised at all if we see him up in the big leagues at some point with the Royals next year.
Can play all 7 positions behind the pitcher. Not necessarily great at shortstop at this point, but like he can fake it there if you need him to for a couple of for someone gets hurt or something like that, and at the end of a game. As a utility guy, I think I wouldn't surprise me if he spends a good amount of this year in the majors, honestly.
I mean, he's a really good minor leaguer who I don't think he was going to get a chance with the Red Sox, but now for him, this is a great move. He's got a chance to make it to the big leagues there.
Yeah.
And I think you just look at what the Red Sox projected Worcester lineup is. There just weren't going to be at bats for him next year. So it just would have been tough to you don't want a guy like him riding the bench. He's at least a AAA starter. So for him, I think that's a nice move.
Yep. No one else selected in that round. And when you go to the 5th round, we're now on one Red Sox selected there. That's right-handed reliever, or 4th round. Sorry. Fitzgerald was the 3rd. 4th round, the Red Sox lost right-handed reliever Brock Bell to the Cincinnati Reds. And something that I just realized,
his dad played for the Reds.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking up. I feel like his dad might manage. I don't know if it's in the
he
Reds
doesn't. He manages in the Angels system right now.
Okay, thank you.
He did work for the Reds for a while.
He did. Okay.
But yeah, he was someone I saw him in Greenville last year. He had a really good season with them, coming back obviously from his Tommy John surgery. I think his second Tommy John surgery. 36
Oh,
innings,
it was
35
the second.
strikeouts,
It
9
wasn't a
walks.
second Tommy John. It was like the other one, like the
Okay, second
ligament, the
arm procedure.
brace,
How about that?
the brace
Yeah.
procedure, which is just basically like if you need a second surgery, sometimes you get this.
But yeah, I think the hard part for him was, and he's actually, his fastball metrics are pretty good. He's got really high IVB on it, but he just doesn't throw very hard. Like he was like 89 to 93, topped out at 94. Whereas pre-surgery, he was 92, 95, touching 97. So his outing, there was just not a lot of consistency from outing to outing with his velocity. And I think kind of one trend you're noticing with all these pitchers is they don't really throw that hard. You know, they're all like low 90s guys or maybe mid 90s at best. A lot of sinker ballers, a couple sinker ballers in there too. Bell's a 4-seam guy, but yeah, he was the other one that I was kind of surprised wasn't protected because I still think there might be some untapped potential. I liked him pre-surgery, but he's missed, basically 3 full seasons. He pitched in 2019, then not again until 2023. So that's really tough to come back from. But I just wondered what it would look like after another offseason. Maybe some of the velo comes back. And because if it does, I think it's pretty interesting. He's got a couple of average secondaries. Fastball is like below average right now. But if it gets back into that 92, 95 range, or if he can even get potentially higher up to that 97, that's a pretty interesting arm with the kind of carry and life he can get on it with that IVB rating or, IVB metric number. So I was a little surprised to see him protected, but not surprised to see him picked.
Yeah, it's you wonder with some of these guys who are like injured, did they gamble? But it's like, why are you gamble? I don't know. I guess that kind of brings us to the final point of, do you have a takeaway?
He's not injured. He was healthy all last year.
Injury history.
Oh, yeah,
sorry, is a better way to put it. Thank you. No, that's a fair correction. Guys with an injury history that might scare teams off, but it's like it's the minor league Rule 5 draft, right? So there's no
downside here. I think it costs you $10K or something.
Yeah, if that. I don't even know how much it costs. But look, I big picture, the Red Sox losing 9 guys today and picking up 2. And I guess losing 10 if you want to count Ammons, but
I would say 10. Yeah. 9. Yeah.
2 in, 10 out. Do you have any big picture takeaways from that? Because it's like,
it's not great for the depth.
It's not great for the depth. I don't think it's the end of the world. None of these guys are ranked. I don't think any of these guys are like, what? They let that guy get away. And by the way, really interestingly, Gilberto Jimenez was eligible to be selected and was not one of the 7, which that was the guy I got wrong when I guess 7.
Not surprising though, because
it's not terribly surprising. I just figured if 7 guys left, he was probably one of them.
Yeah.
I it's not the end of the world.
I think it's just it's a little confusing to me because I like if you're gonna have that was the thing is they ended the major league portion with 3 open slots. They also used one of them on Slayton, so they have 2 open slots there. And I just wonder with someone like Drohan, there's just several guys on the 40-man that I personally think I would take him over. And there's some even like for like guys that I think that just Drohan gives you more upside. And maybe it just is like he doesn't throw hard, and I don't know if he's going to ever, even if he does, like in best case, you're looking at maybe 192, 94. Yeah. Maybe that's just, they just don't think there's enough fastball there. But I still think there was enough value where worst case you could have traded him for something. And then going to the minor league phase, they left open several spots on their AAA reserve list.
They were at 32.
They were at 32 going into the draft. Yeah. So they had 6 open spots going into the draft. They used 1 up. Maybe you could have protected 1 or 2 of these guys to just, increase your depth a little bit. And I just look at the minor league rosters. And I think the biggest one is just the bullpens. And I think the Greenville bullpen is kind of what really stands out to me as I look at, the right-handed options there. And that's where Bell would have been probably. That's where Ramirez would have been, as Perez. I said, I Perez too. Like I like some of those guys more than some of the guys we have projected there right now. So I just wonder, I'm curious what was the rationale between leaving that many open spots. There could be a reason that we don't understand roster mechanics wise, because this isn't something that's very talked about how these mechanics work.
Sure.
And so I'm leaving, could definitely be an explanation, but I just think it's a little curious that, you lose 10 guys or 9 guys plus 1 in a trade and you leave all those open spots when could you have just protected a couple more now going in and then deal with, having to move them off the roster at a later date.
Yeah, and one thing that for those who are really in tune to this stuff, will remember that this offseason, the major league owners cut the domestic reserve list from in the offseason. It used to be 190, it's now 175, and during the season it used to be 180, and now it's going to be 165. The Red Sox are well under. They obviously were under 175 because they had to be, but it's not a situation where they were at 175 or at 174. I did a count earlier after taking the 10 out, but adding a bunch of DSL guys that are probably going to come over. They're still under 165. They're at 162 with again, guesstimating DSL guys who are going to come over. And I realized those DSL guys aren't on the domestic reserve list yet. So I don't think it's a matter of that they thought getting under 165 is going to be a problem, because the other thing too is bring all these guys into camp and decide who you want to cut. It's not, you know what I mean? So it's not a matter of oh, we're going to need to get, jettison these guys anyway. It's why lose them in the minor league Rule 5 draft? Right. So it's not like they would have lost no one. There's probably no way to, you're not going to fill the 38-man roster.
I'm not advocating for that, but I just think it was surprising to
losing 7 versus 4.
Yeah.
Is different.
I just think the losing the 7 is just tough. And again, as what we're saying, this is small things, but you never know. If one of these guys turns into an MLB guy, that's a loss.
Yeah. And look, last year they got Joe Jakes in the minor league Rule 5 draft, right? He pitched major league innings for them and was okay. He might get DFA'd this offseason, but he was okay, right? There's major league depth there potentially, but it's also not you don't lose guys in Rule 5 where it's the end of the world usually. But still, it's just I don't know.
It's just interesting. I mean, it's just stark when you look and it's 9 for them. The next highest is 5.
No, the Yankees lost.
Or 7, sorry. 7 yeah. And then 5.
And then 5, yeah.
But, and it's yeah.
And the Yankees 7 included 3 guys in the major league portion, which is different. I mean, it's different. It just is.
Of just the minor league phase, it was them 7, next was 5.
Yeah.
But, and it's also, I think the interesting part is just talking to people around the game. There was genuine surprise when those 2 lists came out of the names that were left unprotected. This
both
was
in the major and minor league portions.
Yeah. Other teams were oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. Because they clearly liked some of the guys on those lists and probably internally had thought they would have assumed they would have been protected. So there's just an interesting outcome. And I mean, we'll see going forward, whether it was the right move or the wrong move, but it's hard to say at this point until we know what they do with those spots or how, the offseason progresses.
Let's move on to emails.
Yeah.
You can send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com because we want to talk about what you all want to hear about. So let's jump right into it. Ian, our first email comes from SKMSW, and they ask, it's about Yamamoto. And he says, so I really like him a lot, and I'm very hopeful the Red Sox do whatever it takes to sign him. But as a 25-year-old who throws very hard, has a lot of high spin pitches, and has never, to my knowledge, had a significant arm injury, I am mildly surprised more people are not talking about how many pitches he's thrown at a young age and how his obligatory Tommy John still lies ahead of him. His age is a plus, not a minus, but even, quote, pro and con, unquote, type articles and analyses don't seem to consider the wear and tear at a young age. Any thoughts? I mean, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, Ian, is not having had Tommy John is not a negative.
Yeah. I don't think you want to have it.
It's a positive.
Right. He's been healthy. That's good. I understand that obviously the wear and tear is a concern because the pitching is handled differently over there. But I think without seeing the medicals or without knowing, deep into his background, it's just impossible to say. If it works for him, it works for him. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach for keeping pitchers healthy, as we've seen.
You also only pitch once a week in Japan. It's different. Yeah. So you can throw more innings because you get more time in between. You get more
starts. Rest. But yeah, so I think that it's just one of those things.
That's why no one's writing about it.
No.
All right. Our next email is from Andrew, Ian, and he says, I was thinking about during the most recent podcast where you were discussing the updated prospect rankings, where would you guys rank the recently graduated prospects within the rankings? Very simply put, where would Casas, Valdez, Wong, Duran, Bayo, Houck, Whitlock all land within the rankings if they were still eligible? Obviously, you both emphasize the different tiers of Red Sox prospects, but seeing where they would end up if you were still hypothetically ranking them would really help show what to, quote, expect, end quote, from some of the current prospects. Also could give a better understanding of what inherent trade value each of them have. For example, it could help with the Duran, Rafaela, Abreu outfield conversation, or how do Perales and Gonzalez stack up against Bayo, Whitlock, Houck, and so on. Always enjoy the podcast. Very curious to see what you guys think. Thanks for the email, Andrew. Ian, my thought is it's not apples to apples at this point with those guys.
Well, no, because we know we know what they are as major leaguers right now.
I think, I mean, like Casas has to be one.
Casas and Bayo would probably be.
Casas and Bayo are both ahead of anyone ranked in the system. I think about Houck.
No,
no, Houck probably not.
Houck's like a 45.
Houck's yeah, I guess. I mean, Houck's probably.
I mean, I think the easiest way to look at it is just what they are is like.
Houck is in the Blaze York area there. I think you're making. But I think
Houck is like Houck has been in the big leagues for like 4 years. I don't think he really fits with this exercise.
Well, that's the thing. I think Houck and Whitlock don't fit this exercise at all.
No,
and maybe even Wong. But like, if you wanted to insist on putting Wong in, he's probably ahead of York, right?
He's a defense first catcher. Yeah,
but he's like a guy that
he's
you're
a major league
comfortable.
Catcher. Yeah,
he's a guy you're comfortable taking half your starts at catcher, whereas York, like,
yeah. I mean, I think the way you look at it is that Bayo and Casas are clearly every day, or Bayo's at least a mid-rotation starter.
Order. Yes,
they're at the top. Then then you have who the other one's Wong.
Well, I think then you have Anthony Meyer, Teal.
No. I'm just talking about the MLB guys he listed though.
No, but I'm saying he wants to know where they fit in the ranking. So that's what I'm trying to like.
I'm not going to put a specific number, but that's just at the top.
It's Wong, Valdez, Duran, Houck, Whitlock are the other guys he listed. Let's take Houck and Whitlock out because they're just way too experienced. Valdez probably fits in. He's probably in that Zanatello range, maybe ahead of that.
No, Valdez.
I mean, he can't. Yeah, I mean, he's a platoon second baseman.
He's between a 40 and a 45 for me. So yeah.
Well, that's where our cutoff is right now. Zanatello is our last 45.
Yeah.
So
10 to 15.
Like, would you take Mydroth or Valdez?
Neither.
Castro or Valdez. I mean, I think that's probably
the problem is that the issue is that I would take Castro over. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying in the tier, like
it's that tier. That's why I just want to do a tier. I'm not going to give a specific.
Yeah,
number.
Wong probably is in that York to.
Yeah, he's in that.
Cespedes
he's
range.
A little bit ahead of that.
Duran is probably.
He's in that same range, probably. Maybe
I put him a little ahead.
He's in the Rafaela.
He's in the Rafaela Blaze range. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, fair question.
It's just hard comparing guys that you have major league, what they are at the major league level, or at least you've seen a year or two of track record there.
Right. And that's why it's like, why Abreu is 8, right? Because we've seen him at the major league level, and there's a reason guys graduate, because then it's just no longer apples to apples.
Yeah.
And I remember reading when I used, BP would have its like during the, their heyday, when like Mellon was there and stuff, and they would have the like U25 list, and that was always interesting. But it's also like, once guys are in the majors, you have to start considering things like years of team control left and stuff like that, because these guys all are going to have 6 years of control. So there you go. Next email, Ian, is from our buddy Aaron Meta, who says, "Hey guys, happy off season. There was a piece in The Athletic today. We didn't mention this, and it's probably worth discussing because it was in The Athletic, with a survey of different, he says executives, it was agents. And one of the questions was about whether Craig Breslow can turn things around in Boston. One of the respondents said this, quote, "He's inexperienced, so he'll make all the same inexperienced mistakes. In addition to an already poor internal culture, particularly at the minor league level, there seems to be a lot of people trying to climb the ranks with no accountability, blaming players for lack of production, while many of the good people in the front office can't keep up fast enough with the damage control for the poor handling of issues throughout the ranks. His inexperience will only lend to further chaos," end quote. And he's basically asking, do you have any thoughts on what this person meant by poor internal culture in the minor leagues? Does that line up with anything you've heard? Let's just talk about the whole quote, because that section was crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know how you can have takes on Breslow in charge. He's been in charge for like a month.
Well, that's the thing. First of all, like, yes, we've already said the huge con in the pro-con list against him is he's inexperienced in the front office. 100%. That's a knock against him. But I think that makes it a question mark. It doesn't make it he's not going to be able to handle himself. You have no idea how he's going to handle himself. This felt like a hit piece to me in this portion of it. Like, not by the writers, but by like
that agent.
Agents.
I mean, but the point was there
were multiple agents who said negative things too.
Well, no, but if you look at the numbers, it was like 2-5. I don't remember exactly what it was, but obviously they're gonna pick like
maybe.
No, 9 was like we don't know yet. I think we don't know yet was by far the biggest majority. So obviously they're gonna pick the biggest, like the most headline generating quote.
The quote.
So I mean, I don't know. It just all it takes is one agent whose player had a bad experience with the Red Sox.
Yes,
like that's all. Let's come down to it. Agents. Their job is they're going to defend their clients, and if that agent's client had a bad experience with the Red Sox at some point, that's how they're gonna defend them. So, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear an agent talk like that. Like we've all heard we've heard agents vent before. It's not that surprising.
Yeah, I mean, parse the quote, right? There seems to be a lot of people trying to climb the ranks with no accountability, but then it's also many of the good people in the front office can't keep up. So, are there many good people? Or are there many bad? I don't know.
It's just like, I don't know. It's one agent saying a thing. Without addition, if they're not willing to put their name on it, I'm not going to comment on it.
Or more details, right? Yeah. Like it's very general. Look, you've got a system of 180 domestic prospects. Not all of them are happy with the organization. I'm going to tell you that right now. And it's always like that in every single organization.
Yeah.
Our next email is from Ms. Dajuba, who asks, on Wednesday, 10/6/23, the Red Sox trade. Oh, I think this is a theoretical. Asking if the Red Sox could trade Noah Song to the Phillies and then select him in the Rule 5 draft. Players who are eligible for the Rule 5 draft weren't eligible to be traded. So that, I did not mean to mark that important. That takes care of that question. Thanks for the email. Our next and final question is from Aiden, who asks, do minor leaguers selected in the AAA portion of the Rule 5? Yeah, it's asking how the minor league Rule 5 draft works. Yeah, you do not have to play in the AAA level. So we had tackled that one earlier. So thank you all for your questions. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. And with that, we're not going to rank. We've already did our rankings. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the Ludlow Thieves for our intro and outro music, All the Money. Find their stuff wherever it is that you listen to music. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you to everyone who follows us on Twitter. You can follow the website @SoxProspects. You can follow me @SP Chris Hathaway. You can follow Ian @Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And I mentioned our Patreon supporters. We want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. This episode are Curtis Waldman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, Jason Stoneburner, Grayson Sinner, Stephen G. Shaw, Jason Parker, Mike Granger, Jeff Richardson, and Dan Gillen. Thank you all for your support. We really appreciate it. I think that's about it, Ian. That's all the outro stuff. We'll be back soon. Who knows when? I think things are probably going to slow down, so we may or may not be back in your eardrum soon. But keep an eye on the feed. Keep an eye on Twitter. Keep an eye on if there's news, we'll hop on and talk about it. May wind up as a pitch clock. If it's just one move or a smaller move, may wind up as a full episode if a lot of stuff happens like this week. So we'll be back in your eardrum soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.